I get it. It's hard. But are you willing to break that barrier? Because it's you against you. It's not me against you. You're telling me you want these things, but are you willing to sacrifice to do the work?
What's up, guys? John Wetmore back. We are here at another episode of the Insurance Insiders podcast with Ty Brady, owner of Brady Insurance Marketing. And my understanding is you have a lot of agents that work with you over the years and currently. And is it mainly Medicare? That's mainly what y'all do, right?
Medicare and under 65 health insurance,
Yeah.
ancillary products, very little. If I do life, it's just final expense, not any big cases like you're familiar with,
Yeah.
no IULs or nothing.
Yeah, I'm not familiar at all with your world, except it confuses me. There's weird seasonal stuff. Everything
Yeah.
changes. The government hates you. There's a lot going on, I heard.
Isn't that the truth? Yes.
I've heard enough to know I'm glad I don't do it.
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued. It's funny. A lot of people look at what I do and they're like, it's complicated. And they like guys like you say your side's easy. And I'm like, your side feels like Chinese to me, which you probably think equally. So intrigued to learn more. And my goal with this thing is always to share, information with people who find us and give them an opportunity to get better and, give them feedback and advice and things we messed up so that they can see success sooner in the business.
That's the beauty of what we do, right? Medicare is not for everybody. Life insurance is not for everybody, and people find their own path. In fact, I did life insurance my first year, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
A lot of people do really well in that industry. They just not my forte.
What didn't you like? I'm curious.
I didn't like the back and forth. So meaning you write a case, you think you're going to get done, and then it gets kicked out for health. It gets kicked out for suitability. I mean, when I was, doing annuities and things like that, just the suitability factor was the back and forth. And then I just didn't like dealing with people's money. So I just gravitated away from it. And Medicare I fell in love with. There's very little underwriting, and the product portfolio was in my wheelhouse. So that's why.
Got it. So you've been in, I have a note here. You started in 2009, but you started your own deal in 2012.
Correct.
What was the beginning like? How'd you get into it? What'd you do before? Kind of what was that?
So
most people say that.
I have a background in construction. I ran a $33 million construction company, built thousands of homes, developed a lot of houses. And at the peak, I had 150 employees. It was a brother-sister team. So I was in charge of all the production, and the cash register doesn't ring until that house closes or that lot closes. But we know what happened in 08.
Now 09. I know why you started in 09.
Yeah, so 08, and basically in November, the week before Thanksgiving, they gave me my last paycheck and said, "See you later." And I'd made a millionaires over and over again, and I just said, "Hey, all you could do is," I said, "if you can do this for me, just give me time if you're going to let me go." No, they didn't. They gave me my last paycheck on a Thursday, said, "There's the door, pack your crap and get out." And I was like, wow. I mean, that was it. So right before Thanksgiving, and then I ended up going through a short sale and a legal foreclosure. My house was sold out from underneath me by April. So I had to move back in my mom and dad's place with 2 young children and a wife that depended on me. And I'll tell you, I had some hard times when, as a father and a provider, you just want to provide for your kids. That's the whole idea is you want a roof over their head, food to eat and, money to do things. But I was out of a paycheck, and I had to go live with my parents for the next 4 years. But it was challenging because, I had to find a job. And that next year, so from 08 to 09, I worked 17 different jobs, from, installing insulation to building decks to hanging Christmas lights, to doing trim carpentry work, to electrician, whatever I could do to pay the bills. And in the process of that, one of my old vendors that actually provided me my fencing and decking called me up and said, "Hey, we have an opportunity. We laid too many people off, and we're looking for a production guy to run the shop." And I went in and interviewed, and they're like, "You know what? You're too qualified to run the shop, but you know what? We'll give you a shot at sales." They said, "Hey, we'll give you a gas card and all the leads you want." And I'm like, "Well, I've never done sales before," but they cut me loose, and I was $1 million producer for the next 5 years because I did insurance part-time while I was out selling vinyl fencing. It worked out really well because, fencing in Utah is seasonal. So most people want their fence during the summertime, and then the snow flies and whatever's been done is done. But I worked part-time. So the days that I wasn't bidding fencing, I was out selling insurance And then, got about 150 policyholders. And then in '09, I'm like, hey, there's something to this, and started helping other agents do the same in 2012. But it was a process. The one I actually sold a guy a vinyl fence that talked to me about getting in the insurance industry. And so I did a lot of research, and I knew that insurance and banking were the two most recession proof jobs.
Yeah.
And so I gravitated towards insurance, but obviously I didn't know what type. I think I told you earlier, I did a little bit of life insurance, a little bit of annuities, a little supplemental, work site
Mhm.
stuff. I did group. I was doing everything trying to figure out what I like to do. And I was with a captive agency that first year, realized when I went out and sold a deal that I'd make $100, they'd make 300. I'm like, this isn't working for me. So then I connected with my current upline, and then the sky's been the limit. Doubled my income for the first 5 years from 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 10 to 12, and then just basically put the accelerator on in 2012 and went on the road and recruited and trained agents, and now 3,000 plus agents, 50 states, and helping people live the American dream, make a 6 or 7 figure income.
That's dope. Craziness. So 3,000 agents like last year. Is it last year? Is that
No, that's what
all
I
time?
have 3,000 agents that have a contract with me of some kind.
Got it.
So
Got it.
they may
Got it.
have a dental vision hearing policy, a med sup
Yep.
carrier. Last year, I put 500 new agents in the system, and they all gravitate to a product or something that I have to offer
Yeah.
that is in my organization.
That's cool. I love it. If you're looking to transform your insurance sales game in just 12 weeks, this course I put together is for you. Go over 20 different topics, everything from sales to goal setting to lead plans, and everything I've done in the last decade plus, having multiple six-figure sales success. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of agents get to multiple six figures all over the country, mentoring and speaking at all kinds of events. So available now at jwcourse.com, or you can click the link in the description. So how'd you go from you where are you from Utah? Like originally? I know you're there now.
Yeah, from
Okay.
Utah, but I've sold in almost every single state I've been licensed in. Back when I decided to grow the agency, I would do this. I'd order leads, because back in the day, that's how we got a lot of that done, a direct mail
Yeah.
lead. I'd
Yeah.
go to those markets and write policies to pay for my trip. And then I would leave the rest of the leads with agents there, because I knew that I couldn't
Yeah.
get back for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I did that for 2 years in different markets.
No way.
And that's how I was able to grow my agency. My wife told me one thing. She's like, you can go on the road, but you can't move the kids. So she was a stay-at-home mom for 2 years. Bless
Yeah.
her heart, man. And she cracks me up, because she's like, I was just a weekend booty call for 2 years, and I was on the road, hotel, on the road by myself, working with agents.
No kidding. That's cool. What part of Utah are you in?
Just a suburb of Salt Lake.
Okay.
So
So funny story. When I was getting started, I was direct mail too. I came up in direct mail, kitchen table sales also. And there was a period of time where direct mail mortgage leads were king if you could get them in my space. And I remember one of the lead vendors I was working with out here in Georgia. I was building here in Georgia, and I had leads in like 40 something counties. And I was growing my team here, and I'm like, I got to do something different. I need to get some people leads here and let me go grow. And Utah opened up to where I could get like 150 mortgage leads a month in like, it was, let me think, I remember the counties. It was like the 4 counties they connect. It was like Salt Lake, Utah, Salt Lake, Davis,
Weber,
Weber,
yep.
Weber, whatever.
Weber, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That's where all the population is.
Yeah, dude, it's a zillion people in between the mountains. It's the coolest. It never in my life have I seen so many people, and back-to-back appointments would be around the corner. I've never, it was not like that here in Atlanta. Out there, dude, I'm like, I'm running 15 appointments a day. People are like, how do you do it? I'm like, dude, they all live in the same neighborhood. It was insane. But I used to fly out there. I would go, I would start making phone calls on Sunday. I'd sit in the airport, Atlanta airport, start making phone calls on Sunday to Utah, start booking up like Monday, Tuesday, fly out there, and I would sell Monday through Friday up there. And then I stayed in Park City.
Yeah.
I used to stay in this like a ski resort off season, because I didn't go when it was snowing. I would only go when it was decent out. And I'd stay in Park City. And I remember downstairs they had this really nice steakhouse, and I'd go eat by myself. And then in the I don't know, it wasn't a hotel, it was like a condo. I could rent that person's condo, like an Airbnb kind of deal. And in their condo, my wife always rented me the same one because they had a really dope like steam shower inside the condo. And later, when I actually started making money, I built one in my house to mimic the one that I found in Utah. And but I'd fly out there Monday through Friday and sell life insurance up there, and then I would drive down to St. George.
Wow.
Sell there on Friday night and Saturday, and then I'd drive to Vegas and take a red eye home.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you say direct mail was king back in the day. And it's I grew up doing that, but you see, I would do similar things where find out where markets where lead orders hadn't been run and be like, hey, I'm going there. And you know, back in the day, I was getting a 3 to 5% return. I'd go right to literally the cream, and then I'd bounce, and I did really well. Wow.
Yep. Same. That's how I started building outside of Atlanta. I had a pretty good team here in Atlanta. So I did Utah. I go out there and I'd fly out there and I'd meet with people. And then I'd be like, yo, I just flew across the country and made 20 grand this week in your backyard. Same thing. Here's leads, take their ass work. I'm going home.
Yeah.
And I did it in Ohio. I didn't do as many places you did, but I did Utah and Ohio that way. And it's neat to see someone else that's hell. You made it look like I did nothing as much as you were traveling.
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's time or money, right? And it's a sacrifice being on the road, but it front loaded, and the momentum that I have now, it contributes back then. You know, it's not the things I'm doing now. I mean, I've got a lot of synergy on that front end, and it's propelled me to keep growing. That I'm finishing in the top 5 every year as an FMO channel with a lot of these Medicare Advantage carriers. And it's because of the work I did back then.
Yeah, heck yeah. It gets that ball rolling. It piles up.
Yes.
I get way more credit than I deserve today, but I always say I did start it. I got things wrong, but I have so many good people now that, like, hell, be honest, some of them I don't even know, and they kill it without me. They don't even need me.
Well, you spent the time and the money. And I think when I went on the road, I worked harder because I knew that my family was at home. I knew that I had this expense. You know, people say the fastest way is get in debt, you know, go buy a car, put money on credit cards, whatever, buy leads, right? And so I knew that my back was up against the wall. And there was weeks that I struggled, and I would make all my sales on a Friday. You know, and I'm like, dang, I mean, I would just blank. And I did a lot like you did. I made sure all my appointments were booked. So I knew I was running 5 to 8 appointments a day, and because the leads were there. So that was it was a lot of similarities. That's crazy.
Yeah. Did y'all have, so when I started, I was broke too. I was in mortgages. I was doing loans for the people buying your houses that couldn't afford them, or I was giving all the arms away.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I went through same thing, bankruptcy. I had 2 houses foreclosed. It was a disaster. Took car away. It was a nightmare. But when I started in the business, same thing. We were broke, and there was a stage where I didn't sound like make money as quick as it sounds like you did in insurance. I took a minute, but there was a stage where I really was ready to change my life. And my family and my wife and I had to have a conversation about it and plan it out. How did that go with, I know being on the road stuff, dude, you deal with agents, and you know, we all have agents that if they miss a soccer game on Tuesday night, it's the end of the world. How did that go with the family, the conversation? And then I wouldn't hate to hear how it's come full circle now. You know what I mean? How you look back on it.
First of all, that conversation is we knew, having a conversation, that insurance was where we were going to be, like, to replace that income. I mean, I'm making $200,000 a year in construction. You know, life's good. I have a golf course. I have a house on the golf course. So to get that ripped out from underneath you, and you're like, crap, I'm living in my parents' house that I grew up in. And we did that for 4 years, and it was a huge sacrifice, but it was the short term. I mean, as any entrepreneur or successful person, I mean, it's the journey to success, right? And it was that failure that propelled me to even be in this industry, and now the impact I'm able to do on the back end. But I got a phenomenal wife that I was able to sit down with and say, we had to cut out a lot of things. We had to sell a car. We had to downsize. You know, I had 15 houses. The plan was, and I kept 2 of them, and they wanted to file bankruptcy, and I never got through bankruptcy because I was able to short sell them. But I lost, you know, those houses, because my plan back in the day was a house every 2 years. By the time I got the 10th year, my current house would be paid for. but it didn't work out that way. So I got a wife that is very near and dear, and she studied the course, and she was always my sounding board. She's like, "We'll be okay." She's like, "I got the kids." I mean, she'd always tell me, "I got the kids. Just go to work." But I'm telling you what, going on the road by yourself in a hotel room, those put you in
Yeah.
some very dark places. Especially, when an agent wants to go home at 5 to the soccer game, and you've got 6 hours. You've got an evening by yourself, and then you're not working until 8 o'clock the next day. I mean, it's dark. And my wife just like, she's like, "I worry about you," and she'd always do FaceTime or whatever we could do at the time. But it was just having that support at home. One thing that I never allowed myself to do is, there's no bad days in this industry. Meaning, there's days scheduling appointments, there's days doing presentations, and there's days closing. So when I communicated with her, is I'm like, "Hey, I had a great day doing presentations." And she's like, "Well, did you make any money or did you sell anything?" I said, "No, it's coming." Because I knew she had to have the faith in me that I was going to bring home a paycheck. And there was times she's like, "Yeah, that was great. You made $13 this paycheck." But those $13 add up, and she was just patient over time. Now those $13 paychecks are significantly larger. But I had that support at home that I knew my kids were taken care of. But it was having that conversation. I wouldn't be where I'm at without her. There's no question.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to do it. And she was just saying, "Listen, let's it's time or money." And we spent time and money, and putting myself in a situation where, I burned the ship. Napoleon Hill, he talks about burning the ships, right? I was
Yeah.
on that plane. I spent the money. I burned the ships. I got to make it work
Yeah.
at all cost.
That's dope. We should get them. We should get them in a room together one day and let them tell war stories. This sounds similar, dude. And it's, as you know, with agents, man. When we first spoke, we were on Cody's thing, and you wanted to give feedback. Do you remember? You remember? I was like, I don't know you, bro. I'm kind of nervous, and I'm glad I did, because I instantly knew. I was like, this dude knows his shit, But it's funny, man. When you do this for a while, it's crazy how, in a negative way, influential many spouses are, and hold people back because they aren't willing to have that period of sacrifice. And same, Steph gave me no problems ever.
Yeah.
Not once. Didn't want to know when I was coming home. Didn't care. Like, she was just like, do what you got to do to get us where we want to go. And she had to do her part. Like, your wife sacrificed a shit ton too. She'd deal with everything without you there. You know what I mean? It's like, it's neat to see y'all got to kind of meet back up at the end. I know you're still doing it and building, but you probably don't have to travel quite as much as you once did, I would guess.
No. An interesting thing is, as you work across the country, I got people tell me, "Hey, I can't meet tonight on Wednesday night because it's Bible study." Or I had agents that wouldn't travel 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And you and I, if being in Utah, you could be an hour between appointments and travel. But just agents won't do it. They're like traffic.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm like, man, the things that I used to do. And
Yeah.
the podunk towns I used to go, I call them podunk towns, but these small communities
Heck
where
yeah.
I would go and own that community and get tons of referrals based on helping one person that people didn't want to work. I mean, I took
Yeah.
leads that were in the trash. Agents were like, "These are garbage."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I'll take them,
Yeah.
give them to me."
I used to take them and then call them back and let them know how much I made on the ones they gave me.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, "Hey, I closed 8 out of 10 of those leads." I'm like, "What?" You're
Yeah.
like, "Well, they
Yeah.
just,
How long did
it,
it take you to make that 250 back? You were at 250K, whatever you were making in construction. How long did it take you to get to that in insurance?
year 6, year
Okay,
6.
cool. How
And
many were
then,
part-time?
yeah, correct.
How many
So
of how
like,
many of those were part-time? How long did
the
you do it
first
full-time?
5 years were part-time.
Got it.
So,
Cool. So
so
your
what I
first
would do,
full-time year, really.
correct.
Got
Yeah.
it.
So, like when I'm a $1 million producer in selling fencing and decking. That was bringing me $120,000 a year plus what I was making on insurance.
Yep.
So when I cut that tie, and I thought, "Well, I'll do it at the same time. I could do this at the same time." I took
Yeah.
that first phone call from a client. I'm like, "Nope, I'm done." And I told my wife, "I got to make up 120 grand this year. I got to make this up because I knew what my residual was, and I had to make that up." And again, that next 2 years, it just went after it hard.
Yeah.
But it's
Cool.
burn that ship again. I burned
Yeah.
that, either forced the ship was burned or I burned it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. How'd you get into the building side?
I have a bachelor's degree in applied science and industrial design. So industrial design encompasses furniture, cars. So I thought I would go down that route. and
Got
I
it.
just applying for jobs and, showing people my portfolio. There was a local home builder that said, "Hey, well, you can come and design houses or, clean up these houses for the local home builder." And I designed the houses for about 8, 9 months. And I said, "Well, is there any other opportunities here?" And they happened to let a superintendent go. And I had worked in construction with my dad growing up because my dad dad worked 2 jobs as long as I can remember, but, plumbing, drywall, all those things. So I had a concept of construction, and they're like, "Hey,
Yeah.
we'll give you a shot." And I went from superintendent to then they let the project manager go that ran everything on the project management side. And then they put me in that role about 2 years in. And
Got
then
it.
I dealt with city, I tell you, city government, you learn a lot in construction, all the red tape and how many roadblocks that you run into. I got a funny story where I had to put a fence in for a mayor so he'd sign off my $500,000 bond. 60 feet of fence.
Stop it.
No, so literally we did a development that was by the mayor's house, and we did like 100 feet of his backyard with this concrete fencing, and then there was 60 feet that was left. And he's like, "I need you to sign off my bond." He's like, "Well, the job's not complete." I'm like, "Well, what's not complete?" He's like, "Well, come look at my backyard. Does that fence look completed to you?" I'm like, "You're not going to sign off on my bond unless I complete it." So I completed that 60 feet of fence, got my bond released.
Dang. That's
That
crazy.
guy's wild. You're like, "Wow, okay, I see how this
Utah,
goes."
Utah was an interesting place, man. I had fun out there. Really cool people, but man, so I grew up in Boston, and I
Mm.
obviously am in Atlanta. That place was different, and they were all 100% sure I was not from there. Every house I walked into, they were like, "Where are you from?"
Yeah.
It was like the first thing every house. So I started using it. I'm like, all right, first things first, I'm not from here. Now that I've spoke, you know what I mean? And I play a game, get them to guess where I was from. It was wild. Some
Yeah.
of the guess. That was a fun time. I enjoyed Utah. Um, so from building houses to building an insurance agency, what
Yeah.
any similarities, dude?
It all starts with a good foundation. So, the foundation is that I was at a personal producer. A lot of the questions and training I do, I've experienced personally. Like when they say, "What are some lead strategies?" I've tried them all. So I'm,
Yeah.
I'm talking from experience. And same thing in the building industry is that you build that sure foundation and then everything builds around it. The difference, though, I'll tell you this, is that building a house is the American dream. So, and you see daily progress, meaning you see the foundation going in, and then you see the plumbing, and then you see the sub rough, and then all those things, right? It's stages as you go through that process. Well, building an agency, yeah, I'm building the foundation. Like I said, 5 years of personal production allowed me to then build an agency, and some of the work I've done 3 years ago is coming to fruition now. So the long term play, you don't see that visual as quick. I obviously am selling somebody a piece of paper that says when crap hits the fan, they're going to be protected financially with their health. It's quite a bit different, but I have to look at the wins differently because when I was out personally producing, it was a high. I closed that deal and my kick, yeah, I just put
Yeah.
that money in the bank and I got that high. Well, now it's seeing other agents achieve their success, whatever level that is. Because I have agents that support a golf habit. I have agents that make a six or seven figure income. It doesn't matter to me. So I have to look at
Yeah.
those differently. And if they want to have an RV, the car, all those things, I'm happy for them.
Yeah. Did you always look at it in a sense like whatever they want, they can have? I don't care either way. Or did you ever go like, why aren't you trying to make $1 million? Or I used to struggle with it. That's why I'm asking. When
Oh,
I was new to it, I wanted everyone to kill it.
Oh no, I do want them to kill it, right? And what's interesting is over time, my mentor used to say, "Ty, you can never push somebody out of their comfort zone." And I think we talked about it on that show with
Yeah.
Cody.
Yeah.
Is I have people that I think have all the potential in the world, and they stop at a certain income. They're like, "Oh, I got 60 grand a year in residual income." They're done,
Yeah.
and I can't I
Yeah.
can't get them to do anything else. But I'm like, you have so much more potential in you, but I can't want it for them. And that's why I did that reference, be the lighthouse, not the tugboat. And
Yeah,
I
that's a good one.
want them to
Yeah.
kill it. I want them to kill it, but I can't want it for them.
Yeah. Be the lighthouse, not the tugboat.
Hmm.
Interesting. Who's your mentor? Who when you
Ron
reference?
Kellogg, he's since passed away. He'd been in
Got it.
Medicare since Medicare began.
No way.
And yeah, he used to tell me all the time. He said, "Ty, whatever I have in my brain, I need to get in your brain because that's the legacy I need to pass on." So the agency I'm under is Kellogg Insurance Marketing as an FMO. They're an NMA. I'm an FMO, if anybody knows the lingo in that industry. But, he'd pour into me, not necessarily with money, but time. I'd go into his office and I'd say, hey, I got a deal snaked from me. He's like, well, go write another one. Or he's like, write an app a day, an app a day. He's like, you want to relieve stress? Just write an app a day. And, back in the day when I was going on the road, believe it or not, people don't believe me, but I can show you the numbers. I'd write 40 to 60 applications a week. And then I'd split it with the agent that rode with me, the agents that rode with me.
Got it. So you taking people out in the field to show them the business.
Oh man, I got stories that would blow your mind that I've run into, from guns being pulled on me to goats eating through the wall to scared to death. Like, this agent's like, we got to get out of here. You don't know where you're at. And I'm like, I don't know any better. To a cop telling me, son, you know where you're at. I mean, I was in the gas station they burned to the ground in Ferguson, Missouri with those riots. And that was the same deal where a cop said, you get in that car and you do not stop until you hit the highway, son. You don't know where you're effing at. And I'm like, okay. But I had lead cards. I had all these leads. I'm like, I gotta help these people.
And this was selling Medicare or health insurance? Yeah. I don't know the difference, to be honest.
Yeah. So Medicare health plans. And then there's under 65 health insurance, which is referred to as like ACA or the marketplace.
Got it. Obamacare.
Yeah.
I've learned that. Someone taught me ACA means Obamacare. I was like, that makes sense. Interesting. That's wild. I didn't have the patience. I took 2 agents in the car with me. I did it twice. And I was like, yo, I'm not built for this.
You couldn't bite your tongue?
Oh, dude. I just, I have flashbacks still thinking about it, man. I can see, I know some people that did it that way and did it really well and saw success from it. I convinced myself that I was hurting them because I didn't want to do it. And I'm like, yo, I wish I could take you on my first appointment, but my 1,000th, I'm like, your first one ain't gonna look like mine. You know what I mean? And that was me convincing myself why to not do it, but I appreciate guys like you that did and had the patience, because I was not given that gene that
I did not say I had the patience. I bit my tongue many times.
You did it
because the one thing my mentor committed me to, he says, Ty, if you're going to make phone calls, if you're going to go to the field, just take someone with you. But he said, make sure you tell them on the front end to take notes and don't say a word. So, and of course, they always wanted to jump in. They always wanted to. It's a funny story. I had this guy that was a licensed chiropractor in another state, and he could not pass the bar to get the chiropractor's license in Utah. So he decided he was going to get in the insurance space. So I'm in this appointment. Of course, I lay out, don't talk, don't do anything. And all of a sudden, he starts going off about all these supplements and how it can change their world. And vitamin D, vitamin D is the number one underused vitamin, and how it will change your world and make you happy. And I'm like, how do I shut this guy up? Because I'm like, he's ruining my presentation. And we get done with the appointment. And I'm like, what did I ask you to do before we went in that appointment? He's like, be quiet. And he's like, we should do this more often. This was great. And I'm just thinking to myself, no way am I taking you on another ride along after that just happened. And and he's trying to get him on a membership to go, to consult and feel better. And I'm like, nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't the place. Yeah, man. Oh, wow. Trust me, I've got stories that you'd be like, you did what?
Yeah. I couldn't. I did it. Same thing. One of the 2, we went into an appointment. Same thing. Starts talking about not. I'm like, bro, I'm giving him the stank eye the entire time. I'm like, dude, I told you to put duct tape over your mouth, bro. And I was like, nah, we're going home. And that was the last time I ever did it. I'm like, didn't have it in me. So it's wild, dude. Insane. So what do you? I want to hear your thoughts on, like, building an agency. You know what I mean? What's I don't know, give some advice on it, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever input you have. I mean, you've dealt with this many agents, you know where I'm going with it. But a lot of people say they want to build.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's all the time. I'm going to build. I hear it nonstop. And then it gets hard. and then you deal with people, and then you deal with broken people, and then you realize you're broken, and you know what I mean? It's like such an interesting dynamic, dude. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the journey and
Well, growing an agency was not something I said, hey, at the beginning, I just wanted to sell an app. And I realized over time that I drew people to me, and I would just tell people about what I'm doing and they saw my success. Some people watched me for 5 years and they're like,
yeah,
hey, I see something to this. What are you doing? So people naturally gravitated, came and asked me these questions, and I'm like, okay, there's something to this. I think the first 5 years, I probably recruited 20, 30 agents. It wasn't at a large scale, but there were
yeah,
people that had just watched me. Well, then I knew that, hey, I can help these people change their financial future. And then it became, I'd go in and ask my mentor, he'd be like, hey, just follow the agents. And I would just follow where they went and answer their calls. So, but you as you know, you'll pour your heart and soul into some of these people, and they'll turn around and tell you did nothing for them. They'll be like, I'd be in this industry and making $100,000 a year without you. And you're like, really? You wouldn't even know about the industry had I not even talked to you about it. So there's no safe there's no, I mean, you look back, how'd you get in the industry? You didn't just find it and figure it out. So you had
yeah.
talked to somebody, right?
A
You had a
buddy, a
mentor.
buddy
You had
DM me.
well, yeah, but
Yeah,
somebody started that conversation and then
yeah,
helped you
yeah,
along the way, right? And
100%.
so
Yeah,
you, my mentor said, Ty, you've got to be willing to let things roll off your back or don't grow an agency. And
yeah,
then he says, you may not see a return on your investment for 3 to 5 years. People think they're like, oh, growing agency, you make all this money. No, you make less money at the top. And you're dealing with a lot more problems. You're dealing with somebody that may be going through a divorce. You may be dealing with somebody that has a crisis at home and they got death. They've got cancer. I mean, you're dealing with all of that,
yeah,
trying to help them make a living in the meantime. You're dealing with somebody that maybe have gone through bankruptcy, somebody who got laid off their job. So it's more than just the agency. I mean, you are
yeah,
dealing with people's lives. And I took this to heart when my mentor said, you have to be willing to give these people your heart and soul until they make a decision to quit. And I thought, what do you mean? I mean, when they quit, when they stop engaging. And, to be honest, there's agents that never really did anything in the first 3 years. And then 3 years in, something happened and now they're rock stars. Or I
yeah,
got people that start right out of the gate that they're rock stars. And then I have a bunch of part timers. I want to help them in whatever capacity they're willing to give me. So if they're willing to give me one night a week, I'm willing to give them one night a week. If they're willing to give me 9 to 5, I'm going to give them 9 to 5. But I know that the systems and strategies that I have work. And if they will listen, I think you also said this in when you and I talked, that if you're not willing to listen, don't come and give me the excuses on why you're not being successful. But if you're willing to listen and do the systems and strategies, you'll be successful. And it's that framework.
yeah,
I've unfortunately made agents mad because of things that I've said. Like the be back bus never comes back. It doesn't. Or, you just got to get off your couch. Or you got to go back to the basics. You got to smile and dial. You want to go from 200,000 to a 500,000? Order more leads. Well, I'm not willing to do that. I get it. It's hard. But are you willing to break that barrier?
yeah,
Because it's you against you. It's not me against you. Yeah, I might not tell you what you want to hear. I'm not going to tell you it's okay. And people are going to start calling you by the groves and referrals are going to start coming through the door. You've got to market. You go from a person to producer to a marketer. You got to learn to market yourself. Again, it's you against you,
yeah.
not me
No,
against you.
it's true. That's true. I always wondered, like, if people aren't coachable. I was just always confused on why they called me.
Yeah,
I'm like, I mean, if you don't listen, I don't understand the point. And at its core, it was they needed someone to listen to them complain or be whatever it was at the moment, And I'm like, that was a hard stage, man, because I had some really good people that had to like kind of move on from because they were like at a ceiling, you know what I mean? And trying to help them get to that next level. They just didn't want to, most of the times they didn't want to sacrifice.
correct.
That was the biggest catch. Like maybe they do the work, but they weren't willing to sacrifice to give them the time to do the work. And I struggled with that. And I was trying to help as many people as possible. And the hardest part for me of the business, man, was moving on from people that weren't willing to continue to grow and work at getting to another level, and me just having to go like, I'm sorry, I'm not staying in this spot. I'm moving up, and that, man, that was hard because I had some people I was really close to that unfortunately I had to keep it moving. You know what I mean? And it's like, it does make the relationship funny with time.
I think because people like you and I just don't understand. Like we just work, right?
Yeah.
And we've never hit our ceiling. I mean, it's people, some people get in the insurance industry to then chase a passion. I think I mentioned
Yeah.
this as well, that, I have agents that bought back family farms and now they're farming, but they took the
Yeah.
insurance money, or they really wanted to
Yeah.
be real estate investors and they took that money, invested in real
Yep.
estate, or they wanted to open a restaurant, or they wanted to open a care facility. I got an agent that opened a care facility, 100 units. So it's just interesting to
Yeah.
see that development, but I don't understand it either. I just don't. It's like you're telling me you want these things, but are you willing to sacrifice to do the work?
Yeah. I love it. What up, y'all? Officially releasing my book. You can go on and order it now at johnwetmore.com or click the link below. It's where I go over the 6 basic principles I implemented to go from a struggling agent for my first couple years to issuing nearly $500,000 at my own pen. Go through stories and examples and exercises that you can do to implement for yourself. Appreciate it. Again, johnwetmore.com. Get yours. Later. What besides, and you've somewhat kind of just answered it in a sense, but I would love to know more of your thoughts on what you tell agents that it takes to succeed, the things, I mean, just give some insight into that. To like, really, if someone's getting into the business now and they're like, yeah, I want to make 100 grand. Great. I've never made it. 100 grand would be dope, but I'd really like to live different. Like, I want to make multiple 6 figures. I mean, what's that? What kind of advice are you giving to people?
So typically, when an agent onboards with me, I want to sit down with either myself or a member of my team, and it's more of a coaching
Mhm.
session. Like, what do you want to make? Right? It's a dream board. I mean, if they're not willing to do a dream board and tell me what kind of car do they want to look like, what kind of car do they want to drive, what house do they want to look like, what kind of financial freedom do they want to have, if they're not willing to do that most basic thing, they're not for me, because I'm asking them to do some homework before they even onboarded, because I want them to look at that and, look at that dream board and be like, okay, here's the house that I want. Here's the car. Here's the financial freedom. What does that look like to you? That's the first thing. And then coming up with a game plan. Let's say they have a day job, and they can only sacrifice Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So I had a school teacher making 50 grand a year, teaching the entrepreneur class at a local high school. He came to me and said, hey, I really see what you've been doing. I'd really like to participate in this. What can I do? And I said, okay, what days can you commit? What days can you commit to work? It was Thursday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays. In a 18-month period, he went from making 50 grand at the local high school to over 100 grand. Now he's making over $500,000 a year, 1,100 policyholders, and now he wants to develop a team. Lives in his dream home that he did. Retired his wife that was a nurse that used to chase schizophrenics off scaffolding 20 stories up, because during COVID the hospital was used as a mental facility, because that's where they put those patients. I mean, just some crazy stories. But now he has kids that are 2 boys that are twins that are young, that he's able to give back. But it's having that time with them to come up with that game plan, and then basically checking in once a week. Hey, how you doing? Are you making your calls? What experience did you have? And if an agent goes and works a lead, I want to know the good, bad, and the ugly. And if they're not calling me, that's a problem, because I can't prepare them for everything in every situation in that appointment. But at the end of the day, I just want to see him close that deal. Could I give him another something to ask, a little tidbit? Because they can do all the training on the front end, but there's nothing that's going to prepare them for real life until they're actually asking the questions, actually getting in a presentation, actually doing it themselves.
Yeah.
And as they make that game plan and then return and report, the sky's the limit.
I love it, dude. I was with a an agent a couple weeks ago in one of Cody's events, and we were having this conversation. She was struggling with some stuff, and I know the guy she works with, great dude. He makes a bunch of money. He knows his shit. I'm like, why don't you call him? Like, you're struggling with this. Are you calling him to review what your problems are?
Yeah.
And I hear this a lot, dude. It drives me mental. So I kind of want your thoughts on it. She's like, well, I know he's busy, so I don't call him. I'm like,
Uh, I try to say on the front end that yes, I am busy. I'm not going to
yeah,
deny that, but I'm never too busy to take their phone call. I
yeah,
may not get back with them for 20 minutes, but if they say, "Hey, Ty, 911, I need an answer to this questions because they're in an appointment trying to close a deal," I'm gonna step out of a meeting and take that
yeah,
call because but and not only that, I've got a good support team as well. That's important because if they
yeah,
can't get me, I have 30 managers that they can call, their current immediate upline. Then I have two full-time marketers, recruiters that they can answer questions to. But the
yeah,
idea is usually if an agent's calling you, they're struggling with something, whether it
yeah,
be personal,
yeah,
whether it be trying to get an app done through the what did they miss, what could they have done, all those things.
yeah.
So it's a priority thing, and letting him know I'm never too busy to take that phone call.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the dude would have taken her call. You know what I mean? It's not
Yes,
that he's telling her. It's just it's funny where people they project something out there that's literally made up and hold themselves back. You know what I mean? And I'm like, dude, he did hire you.
that's
I'm
correct.
like, his job is to help you, and he wouldn't have hired you if he wasn't prepared to do that. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I'm like, so stop putting these false words out there. And I don't know, man. I think people do it as I don't know, it's wild, like a reason to validate why they're not succeed. You know what I mean? They try to find some reason to validate it. And I'm like, will you pick up the phone and call him? Send it. She was struggling with booking appointments.
Wow.
And I'm like, have you recorded them? Have you sent him record it? No, I haven't done. No, I just keep struggling. I'm like, how's that working? You know what I mean? Like, let's
Uh,
change something.
I go back. Are you committed? Are you interested? Right. If you're committed,
Mm,
you're gonna eliminate all the excuses. If you're interested, you're just gonna come up with excuses. And I think that is an excuse where they're like, "Well,
I
he's
like
too
that.
busy." Well, that's a limited belief they put on themselves.
Yeah.
He's never too busy, and if not, he's gonna put you in contact with somebody who can help you, because he wouldn't have hired you, just like you said,
Yeah.
unless he didn't see something in you.
Yeah. Committed or interested. I like that one. It's dope. I love it. So what's you talked about vision board and or dream board, I think you called it.
Yeah.
What's next for you? Where are you trying to go in this deal?
Well, I just keep doing what I'm doing, and just keep growing at the consistent rate I have been growing. There's been offers on the table to buy the agency, and I just don't know if that I'm there yet. Maybe
Yep.
one day, but I just don't. If I can continue to do that, I mean, my mentor used to say, you build a business to build a legacy. You don't build a business to sell. But at some point that may be on the cards, but
Yeah.
it's not there yet. Um, there just keep. I mean, there's 50 million Americans. This is what I always come back to. There's 50 million Americans on Medicare right now. By 2030, there'll be 80 million. And out of that 50 million, less than 30%, 30% of the people actually do something. So there's 70% of that 50 million that are doing nothing. And that's what's scary because, the greatest generation of wealth is baby boomers. And they don't even know what their options are. They've been so inundated that they're going to get scammed, that they're going to get taken advantage of, that they just choose to do nothing, but yet there's opportunity for them to better themselves, better their health. I see people work 40 years and they retire, and yet their health is then bad. So they can't even enjoy the money or the retirement because their health is bad. And healthcare is changing. Healthcare, a lot of these plans want you to have a relationship with your doctor. And it's like, how many people can we impact, not only on the consumer side, but on the agent side, so that it's a win for everybody. And it's a great responsibility when you think about that, of the amount of people that are doing nothing. Kind of like when you talk about mortgage protection. People insure their cell phone, that's $30-$40 a month, and they won't insure
Yeah.
their life. I mean, I've
Yep.
got probably $15 million in life insurance and index UL and whole life and all those things. I have 20 pays on all my kids. And I mean, I believe in insurance because I don't want to deal with that phone call when something happens and be like, dude, you're on your own. To replace my wife, I got her insured for about 8 million. That ain't enough. I mean,
Yeah.
what she does, it ain't enough. And people insure their cell phones over insuring their own life. It just blows me away.
It's true. So when you say 70% of them do nothing, meaning they don't have like health coverage at all?
They typically will do just original Medicare, so they're not going a supplement or advantage
Got
plan.
it. So they have a
And you're
ton of
talking
costs.
that, they just don't know.
Interesting. Wild.
I mean, the largest insurance carrier has about 8 million. No, I think they may have passed 10 million, close to 10 million. So they have 10 million to 50 million. And then you take the next four largest insurance companies to make up the other, that makes up the 30%. It's just wild. So much opportunity.
Dang. And only getting bigger.
hmm
This industry's been insane to watch. And how old are your kids?
I have my daughter turns 22 in August and they go to 7. So 16, she just got her driver's license 2 days ago, scares the heck out of me. The PNC guy said, "Hey, your insurance just went up by 10 grand a year." I'm like, "Okay, we got to figure something out. 10 grand a year, she ain't driving. She can park in that car." And then 13, I got two boys. I heard you say baseball. My boy lost in the playoffs yesterday, but 13 and 11 are my boys. I got a boy that plays baseball, lacrosse, and football. Then I got a boy that plays lacrosse and football. They both play on comp teams for lacrosse, and football is their passion. So,
So
and
4
then I got a
total,
7-year-old,
right?
7-year-old
Oh,
that
is
does
that
comp
5?
cheer. Yeah, 5 kids.
5 total. Me too. Very cool. Very cool. Any of
But
them?
you'll find me if I'm not working, I'm somewhere with them.
Yeah.
Chasing them somewhere, doing something in the evenings.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Does the older one, is she in insurance? It's a girl, you said, the older one?
Yeah, so
Daughter?
she is in insurance actually,
Okay.
and I never asked her to.
Yeah.
She actually works as a receptionist, does really well as a receptionist and an office administrator, and then she sells on the side. But
Cool.
I never encouraged her. She's like, I want to build a team one day, but I
Yeah.
think just she has that guaranteed paycheck, and so she'll write like 10 or 12 or 20 during AEP, and I keep
Yeah.
telling her, we got to get you to 100, we got to get you to 100 because that's guaranteed $2,500 a month. And now
Got it.
she's getting ready to move out, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm ready for that, but
It's
so.
insane. I just had another one graduate from high school this
Ooh.
past weekend. So I have 3 out of high school now. 2 are done with college, actually. So third one going into college, and then 2 younger. And none of them, my oldest did insurance when I was brand new, but I had no idea what I was doing. And she was trying to sell from college, and she did well part-time, but she just didn't stick with it. And in those days, we had no idea what we were doing. So she was driving all over the God's green earth. And yeah, I mean, it was literally my first 6 months in business in the industry that she got into it. So she's not in anymore. But my 16-year-old, he's like, yo, when can I start? Can I start doing something now? I want in. He's dying to get involved in the industry. So I'm excited to see where the next generation of our little nuggets takes this thing. It'd be fun.
One of the interesting things you say about that is people are watching you. I mean, I've had,
Mhm.
brother-in-laws that have watched me over the last, 8 years, and they're like, there's something to this. Got a brother-in-law that does mortgages, and he used to buy and sell mortgages. He hit me up. He's like, man, what have you been doing? Like, they know kind of what I do, but
Yeah.
not what I do. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, I'm retired now. I got to do something. It's the
Yeah.
wildest thing. You're like, well, you had an opportunity to do this 15 years ago, but hey,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll take you now.
It is insane. I've had a lot of people. It's funny, like if they don't know us, they don't really know. They kind of see or whatever. But I've had like end of year parties with my kids' baseball team, and they come to the house and they'll be like, what do y'all do? Because I just show up, I'm in gym shorts and a t-shirt, what I mean, you wouldn't have a clue. And it's kind of fun. I enjoy it. And I love helping people figure this thing because I got so much help figuring this industry out, dude, from so many
Yeah.
good people. I wouldn't be here without a shit ton of them,
My
beating into
kids,
me.
they crack me up. They're like, "What does your dad do?" "Oh, he talks on the phone." And my phone rings and I step
100%.
out. They don't bother me. I'm like,
Yeah.
they're like, they know. My wife, she's like, he's working. That
Yeah.
that phone rings or I'm on the phone. It's like, okay, Dad's got to
Yeah.
go.
I
So
would do my stage where that was all day, every day. I remember my kids' biggest memory of when they were little was me on the phone, crazy. And even if we have memories at places doing fun things, there was a stage, dude, building this sucker where I was. It's not like that today, to be honest. It's not all day, every day anymore. Fortunately,
no,
I have
you're
so
correct.
many
Yeah.
good people. But man, that stage, most people can't handle that stage.
Well, until you
Yeah,
get good people around you, right? That's
yeah,
what you do. You're wearing a lot of hats. I mean,
yeah,
you are wearing a lot of hats, and you
yeah.
just keep grinding.
Well, What so how do y'all, this is just me curious because I want to understand the size. I know how many agents you have. Do y'all track volume like the same way we do in like an annual premium, or how do you speak your lingo? Like how much insurance do y'all sell? I'm trying to figure that out.
So
How do I understand it for a dumb life
everything that,
guy?
yeah, everything that I commit to is app count. All they care
Okay.
about is app count. So the carriers every year will ask me how many apps I'm going to write for XYZ carrier, PDQ, and so on. So
Cool.
I'm committing to apps. Now, when they count apps, it's
Love it.
new to the carrier. So if it's a plan change, yeah, everybody gets paid, but I don't get credit for growth.
Makes sense.
So that's how they
So it's
track
on new
everything is
apps.
correct. New to the
How many
carrier.
new apps you do last year, say? Do you know? Yeah,
Last year, almost 8,400.
that's dope. So sick. And what's the goal this
Eight.
year?
I'll probably like 10 to 12,000.
So sick.
The year before that, I did just shy of 5,400.
Cool.
So
Love it.
again, I probably wrote another 40% plan changes. So
Yep.
you look at,
Yep.
I probably wrote 14 to 16,000 applications for the
Yeah.
year,
Yep.
but the ones I got
Plan
credit for
changes. Yeah.
was, yeah.
I follow. How many do you do as like a producer by yourself? Like what's a good number? How many apps? I know you said
Man,
100 for your
that is
daughter,
it.
2,500, so I assume it's a lot more.
If they are a full-time agent, the
Mhm.
expectation is one a month, one a day, so 20 a month. That's a,
Oh, all year long.
but no, so you're looking at 240 apps a year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of agents that write 40 to 60 a year. So there's everything in between. The agents that write, 150 to 200 during what's called AEP, they've got a book of business and they're managing. They may have 1,000 to 1,500 clients that
Yeah.
they've got over the last 5 years. And it all just depends on the agent. But if they're a full-time agent, I'm like, hey, an app a day, 20 apps a month. And then if they're a part-time agent, I'm like, there's no reason you can't do 8 a month if you're doing it one night a week. I mean, if you run 3 appointments a night, you close one of them, you're there. You close a husband and wife, you're there. So it's just set that game plan we talked about, that vision board,
Yeah.
because we know what an app gets them. We know the
Yeah.
street comp. They get paid the 100% of the street comp,
Yeah.
but it's just setting the expectation of what's capable.
So you said
And the leads are a third, a third, a third. There's a third of the people that are going to do something if I get to them soon enough. There's a
100%.
third of the people
Yeah.
that I'm never going to get a hold of, no matter
Yep.
what I do. And there's a third of the people that are tire kickers. Well, I know that if I put those middle people on a drip campaign, eventually they're going to call me. I
Yeah.
know that the third of the people, if I get to them soon enough, that's the cream. I'm going to ride them. And I mean, just if you wrote the cream, the 3 out of 10, you're going to win.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
call, you got to do the work.
That's the exact same in my world. The numbers
Yeah.
are near identical. So you said 100 apps when you were referencing your daughter was 2,500 a month.
Yeah.
So 30 grand a year. So if you write 100 apps next year, it renews, right? So then they're getting
Correct.
60 grand.
Mhm.
And they do it 4 years like you did. They're making 120 grand just renewing.
Yep.
That's dope. Cool
Yeah.
business, ain't it?
It is. It's
I love it.
incredible.
I love it. Cool, man. Well, this has been fun, bro. Anything you want to add, put out there, give thoughts on, however you want to end it, man. I'll leave it up to you.
Well, I mean, you could find me on social media pretty easy, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those things. And the one thing I'd want, it's Ty.R.Brady. You'll see my picture. I also
Mhm.
have a consumer facing website, Brady Insurance Marketing. And I'm happy to chat. Anything I can do to give you a little bit of insight. Maybe you're in a rut. I talked to an agent where he's like, listen, I just can't seem to break $500,000 a year. So I sat down and talked to him. And I said, well, what's your schedule like? He's like, well, I spend Monday and Tuesday scheduling all my appointments. And then I close, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I said, well, have you ever thought about hiring somebody to book your appointments? And he's like, that's a brilliant idea. I'm like,
Mhm.
anyway, his income changed to where he wanted to go, but he never thought about that. It was something that simple, a 30-second phone call where he changed from going making a $500,000 to $1 million a year just by scheduling a phone booker. So those are things and he wasn't even part of my team. He was part of
Yeah.
someone else's, and I don't really care as long as I was able to help him and give back. But you know that you're valuable. The people need you, whether you're whatever product you're selling. I think you'd rather want to take a phone call if somebody calls you up and says, "Hey, I just got diagnosed with cancer. Well, I don't need you to worry about that because I put you on that cancer, heart attack, stroke policy." Or hey, somebody calls you up and said, my husband was in a tragic accident, just passed away. Well, don't worry about it because we got that $2 million life insurance policy.
Yeah.
When I think agents forget when they take when they decide to get licensed and get a professional license, they have an added responsibility to tell people about these products. Talk where your feet are. There's so many people that need help, but I love it how agents are so afraid of the fear control, and they have paralysis because of the fear. But you may not get everybody, and it's enough no's you're going to get told yes. But just keep talking where your feet are. People need you. You're valuable. The universe needs you, and let's give back. And I promise you, when you give back, you're going to be rewarded on the back end. Financially, free time, family, faith, all the things that I talk about all the time.
I love it, dude. It's all good stuff. Appreciate your time, bro, and giving back to the community here. And you're one of the good ones, bro. Good chatting.
Yeah, talk to you later, my friend. Thank you.
There we go.